Get in on the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction.
Every hit, every shot, every goal.
From all your favorite teams and players.
With competitive odds, the best live in play, and more ways than ever to get into the game.
Like Minute Madness, our exclusive game with so many opportunities to win by the minute.
Download the app in Ontario, use the QR code you see at the bottom of the screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started.
19 plus, please play responsibly.
She scores!
Take a moment to look up at the ceiling. You're about to bust through it.
SDPN, the PWHPA, and Sports Interaction.
Want to bet?
Presents hockey like you've never heard it before. The Knoxy and Kax Show with Liz Knox and Karell Emard.
Let's get it. Go.
Welcome back to the Knoxy and Kax Show on SDPN. This week we are so lucky to be joined by the player voted most busy vibes. Now I'm already stumbling over.
We should have had Vizzies right here. It would have been perfect.
We should have had Vizzies. Most busy vibes by her teammates on the Burger Bunch, Team Harvey's. She's the 2018 Clarkson Cup champion and now a 2023 Secret Cup champion, product of Niagara University and Robert Morris University. We'll get into that story later. Her day job is a full-time guidance counselor at De La Salle College. Please welcome to the show, Kristen Richards.
Woo! Welcome, Richie.
So before we get into Rich's story, we want to talk quickly about Women's Worlds, which are underway. Start us off, Kax, with Natalie Spooner.
Wow, what a story, hey? I mean, first women to actually do this 4 months after giving birth, but first game back since giving, again, welcoming Rory to this world in December. And she scores the opening goal for Canada in a 4-0 win against Switzerland. So not only can she play right after this, but she can also dominate at this level. I love it. I think it's a great story. I think she's proving people wrong in this state and also making it clear that, you know, it's not the end of your career once you potentially have a baby.
Absolutely. The Adidas ad that runs, I'm sure you've seen it. Yeah, throughout the Women's Worlds, but they crushed it. And clearly, you know, it was written in the stars for them to have that ad kind of in their back pocket because, making the comeback spoons and scoring that opening goal. On the other side, our U.S. friends, Hillary Knight was named captain of Team USA, taking over for Kendall Coyne-Schofield, who's also pregnant right now. So again, congratulations to Kendall Coyne. But in a great interview, Hillary Knight was asked, kind of like what she had learned from Kendall in the past number of years. You definitely want to check that out. It was really cool to see her talk so highly of Kendall Coyne-Schofield. And I don't think it's like really a huge surprise to see Hillary Knight wearing the C, but an honor that she's certainly earned over like the last, at last decade. Like she's been part of the U.S. program, I feel like since she was an infant.
Yeah, exactly. She's been there for a while. I believe the interview was reposted on our platforms on PWHPA as well too. So if you want to easily find it, go to the PWHPA page and then look at it. Let us know what you think. And then I also want to give a little shout out to two women that I don't know if you were coached by any, but I got coached and I coached with Delaney Collins and Clara McLeod, sorry. They're both helping to other country, I guess, they've been working with them, developing their teams, developing everything. And I think we see the results in why Women's Worlds is so much more competitive than it used to be. Delaney is coaching Team Hungary, and correct me if I spell it or say it wrong, Knoxy, okay? Step in, the French is, and Clara is coaching the Czech Republic, or the Czechia. So that's it. I knew it was going to go wrong.
It's hard to keep up with the name change.
Well, they changed a couple of times, and you corrected me before, and I still didn't listen. So
that's okay. But you gotta get a jail French card.
Thank you. I'll use it as much as I can. I was actually at the games on Wednesday. Missed the France game catch. I drove through this crazy weather, but I missed half the game of the U.S., but I was there for the end. And I will say that Japan actually surprised me in that win for USA. I believe 7-1 was the last
Yeah.
7-1 against Japan. For US again, and Japan was having great chances and everything. And then I stayed for Canada versus Switzerland. And again, 4-0 game, but goaltending was impeccable on the other side for the Swiss. And then the games was actually really intense and fun. Obviously, Canada is, might look like what the Habs looked last night against the Capitals, but it was actually really fun. It was a good game. So.
And you know what? That team Japan really, they always impress me. They have like a zest, I think. And, young squad, super, I guess like high work ethic, diligent, disciplined, athletic goaltending. So, it's great to see them, competing. As you mentioned some of the scores, but I'm just going to recap quickly. So Canada 4-0 over Switzerland. We had Hungary beat France 4-2. Czechia took Japan in overtime 2-1. So really close game between those two squads. Germany 6-2 over Sweden. USA, as you mentioned, Kax 7-1 over Japan. And then Finland with a thumping over France 14-1. But really, like, other than that score, I mean, all respectable scores. So it's, to your point about Delaney Collins and Karell McLeod, developing other countries, their programs. I think we're seeing kind of that increase in compete level.
Yeah. And that's only 2 of many that have gone, overseas or like have helped the federations, and the federations are finally investing a bit more. So, at this point, I think they're seeing the results a little bit and how it's important to put the money and then help having the girls on the ice and develop so that they look good in these high level and competitions and at the biggest and highest stage of our game, so
crazy. You invest in the athletes and they get better. It's a wild concept. You can follow at Women's Worlds on Twitter for all of those updates. We wanted to send a special shout out to all of our previous guests who are competing and participating at the Women's Worlds Championship here in Brampton. A special shout out to Izzy Germain and Kenzie Lalonde, who have the 31 games that they're calling over the next several days. Izzy as the in-game PA announcer, and of course, Kenzie Lalonde with Cheryl Pounder running play-by-play and color commentary. So in the media world, we wish you ladies good luck and lots of hauls. And that kind of brings us to our guest, finally. Sorry for making you just sit there and listen to us ramble, Rich. But you are headed to the Canada-USA game on Monday. You played with a lot of girls on both teams, and we hear that you're bringing a special guest. So why don't you tell us where your story starts?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is coming full circle for me. So my dad is actually the person that I'm bringing. And for those who have been involved in women's hockey, Dave Richards is definitely no stranger to the game. Actually, this year, he came out to one of our practices because my dad still comes to practice. Yep. And he was standing up in the stands, and our coach, Laura Mack, is actually somebody that he had the pleasure of coaching as well. So he was like, wow, this is weird for me. There's girls that are playing and there's girls that are coaching, and he's had that pleasure of coaching every single one of them out there. So it was a really cool thing for us. He coached me in minor hockey when I was playing boys. When I headed over to girls hockey, he took a team of girls that was playing in the boys, coming over to the girls together. We had an undefeated season in our first year in Bantam, played a year of midget, and then went up to junior from there. So really successful coaching career, and definitely one of my heroes growing up.
Oh, that's cute.
I want to know, what is watching a game with Dave going to be like? Is it going to be like hashing out the olden days and talking about, I remember when she scored in Pee Wee Brampton tournament? Like, what do you think the game's going to be like with him?
Yeah, we're definitely going to go down memory lane a little bit. He's definitely going to mention every single player's dad's name as well, because he knows all of them personally. And honestly, like I think a lot of it will just be him appreciating the talent and how far it's come. He's, like I said, like he's continued coaching in the junior level after I'd gone to university as well. So a lot of the younger players he still has a connection with. So I think he's really just going to get to sit back and see it all come together and really appreciate the fact that he had a portion of these players' lives.
That's awesome. You know what?
Love that.
We all love the good coaches out there and the ones that take the time to show up at the rinks at whatever time we get the ice, and then every single weekend driving us around. My dad was also coaching me when I was younger, and I think we don't give them the shout out enough. So shout out to all the dads out there. And I think I met your dad while I was recruiting for Colgate. It was very nice man, and I appreciated everything he was saying. So I enjoyed watching the games with him too at times. Just saying.
Yeah,
he is
he's
one
honest.
of the good ones.
He's honest and
very honest.
he definitely takes the recruiting realm very seriously. So he wasn't going to give you somebody that wasn't going to perform for you. I know that for sure.
That's why I liked it.
And so, as you mentioned, you played a lot of your minor hockey underneath your dad. Kind of walk us through maybe some of the best teams that you were on, fondest memories from your time in the GTA.
So I was really fortunate to play boys hockey. I had 3 players on my team that played with me for over 9 years. So that was a pretty exciting little connection that we had there, all the way from house league select up into AA boys hockey. And then when I switched over to girls, I actually came over with a player. Her name's Thea Imbronio. So by the end of our college career, we had played 10 years together. So we played boys hockey together. We played girls hockey together. We played some soccer together here and there too, just that dual athlete, the dual sport athlete.
I have to do other sports. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. And that was definitely one of the connections. Actually, when I go from Niagara to Robert Morris, I finished off with her there too. So just a cool little experience in terms of staying connected with some of the people that were a big part of my minor hockey career into the future as well.
I love that.
And
absolutely love that.
You kind of barely touched on it there, but after high school, you landed on Niagara University first. And this is where we get into the saga of the Kristen Richards effect.
Before we get there, we also asked the question, why Niagara? And I want to know, or why the college you chose, and why did they have a scooter, type of deal, or whatever, those type of thing. How was the visit? And then we get into that, Knoxy. I just like that. I like that little segment here.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's a good question. And I've enjoyed hearing your past guests kind of talk about their experiences and why they chose what. Mine isn't super exciting like some of the girls. I didn't have a scooter story or anything like that. I didn't jump out any windows on my recruiting trip. But I did actually know for a long time that I wanted to be a teacher, and the education program at Niagara being one of the only ones in the States that was going to be recognized when I came back into Ontario. As a guidance counselor now, a part of the way that I ask my students to kind of limit their options moving forward is knowing what they want to study is always super helpful, and knowing what they want to do in the future can definitely help that as well. Just because if I knew that I wanted to come back into Ontario and teach, I didn't want to have to do another 2 years of teacher's college after it. So that was the school that made sense for me. I really loved the coaching staff there. I was lucky to have Chris McKenzie when he was recruiting me there too, Josh Skiba. So again, some really incredible coaches. I believe, Karell, you also worked with Josh for a little bit there too.
I worked with Josh at Colgate. Love them too. And he's at the Worlds right now. So let's the circle back. You may see him, but he's the assistant coach there. We'll be there on Monday. So hopefully you can see him after the game. That'd be sick.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. But definitely a great coaching staff, a great group of girls, nice and close to home. My dad was a huge part of my life.
Right.
Like you guys know, my family is a big part of my life as well. And I needed to make sure that he was coming to those games to hash out those memories with me. So that was helpful as well in that sense.
I love that. And then I'm sure the locker room was fun too. When you it's all about feeling good and feeling, close to home, and then feeling that you can be supported by your staff or the teammates there. So that's a great one. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And even if my counselor wanted to ask me what I wanted to study in, I don't think I would have had a clear answer like yours, but hey, appreciate it. You went for it, and you're a teacher. I studied psychology, and I'm nowhere near the field of psychology.
You got to know what
you
the
kind of
players
are. You're
think.
Yeah,
I guess so. I guess I'm using the certain aspects.
And you had mentioned it was nice to be close to home for family to come. I think I remember you telling me a story about your grandmother actually coming down to Niagara for a special hockey game. Can you tell us that story?
Oh, yeah. So my nonna was actually a breast cancer survivor. So we had our Pink the Rink game at Niagara University, and I had approached my coaches and let them know that I had a personal connection. And they said, oh, you know what? That's fantastic. Let's have her out for the puck drop. And I'm not sure how much you guys know, Italian families. And my nonna was not the biggest supporter of me playing hockey because it's a pretty scary sport. So she's never been one to watch my games, and she came out to Niagara that day, and she was coming out for the puck drop. She had her pink shirt on. She looked cute as ever. And my sister, who's 5 years older than I am, she played at York University. She actually had prepped my nonna for this experience and said, oh, you don't drop the puck, you throw the puck. And so there I see her coming out onto the middle of the ice and like getting ready to wind up and throw the puck across as I'm going up to take this face off. And I was like, what on earth is happening? So thankfully we stopped her just before she threw it. She also lasted about 2 minutes into the game before she said, okay, it's time for me to go home. So she didn't get to watch the whole game, but she was definitely a big part of that.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Imagine just.
I wish you didn't stop her. Just watch her absolutely yeet it across the ring.
Yeah,
Would have been a good throw too.
Me, I would have probably been like, yeah, go for it, throw it. But like freshman me, where I'm still afraid of everybody, was like, please don't make this my first appearance here.
Who did we bring in? Who is this kid? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And in your, I was looking at your bio, your player bio from Niagara, and under personal, you stated, keep in mind, this is like 2010, which means you probably wrote it in like 2009. Your career aspirations were to become a high school teacher and a coach. You crushed it. Like you did it. Yeah.
Way to check the boxes of like setting a goal and actually sticking to it fully. KPIs were hit.
You know what? It's funny because like the guidance counselor me is like, oh, like you don't have to have anything figured out. Don't worry about it. Things can change. You can do whatever you want to be. You can go in and study whatever you want. And then there's me who's like, I knew what I wanted to do when I was 8. So here I am. But everybody's experience is different. Yeah.
I know. It's true. And yet us too. Knoxy, did you know what you wanted to do? Like, did you have that kind of line in your bio?
I will tell you. My first year at Laurier, I wanted to be in the business program so bad that as like a general arts applicant, I just took all business programs, like all the business classes, probably not against the advice of my guidance counselor. And then on my first day of university, I went to one class and I dropped all my courses. So no, I had not a freaking clue what I wanted to do.
You're just, business world may not be my world. I'm not sure if it's like fit for me.
Not for me.
You know what though? As a counselor, maybe you would appreciate the fact that she tried and she gave it a chance and then switched it up. So
Kristen would have talked me out of that for sure. She would have been like, I see your grades, girl. Maybe this isn't for you.
She reads her students way better than the counselors you had at the time, probably.
What about you, Kax? Did you know you wanted to be a podcast host when you grew up?
Oh, absolutely. I was like, I'm going to have this thing going.
I didn't exist when you were in high school?
I don't think so.
I don't think cell phones existed.
And if you want to go there, and if you want to bring it up, no. And my BlackBerry and my PIN and all that jazz. We're not providing me everything we can do now with iPhones. No, but I went to a liberal. Well, actually, I kind of knew. So because in Quebec we have like the CWHL stuff, and my counselor was amazing to even just get us to have all the pre-request classes or pre-requirements to get to the NCA. But she was also like really good at like making us try in CWHL, which is kind of like a freshman year technically when you get to the States anyways. And I tried psych and I really enjoyed the classes, like intro to psych. And then I did 4 classes of psychology in my time at the CJEP part, which were credited afterwards because they're like university level classes. So I guess I kind of knew, but I didn't write it anywhere. And I didn't really I was like, oh, and on top of it, I get credits and I get less classes when I get to St. Lawrence. I'm out for it. This is great. So, there's a little bit of I had a plan and I kind of followed everything and beyond. I had a plan to graduate in 3 years and get my master's though. That's one thing. And I was going to, and my coach was like, hey, wait. You just got hurt. You're redshirting. You can't graduate. Pick something else right now. So I had 1 course left, and then I graduated in 3.5, and then did my master's in a year and a half.
Wow. That's still pretty bang on.
The crazy one that's like a hot mess, a hot organized mess is what I was defined as by Mayor McDougall, my assistant coach at St. Lawrence. I had it together. I knew I had a plan.
What a girl.
Yeah,
it all wound up okay for you too.
I guess so. I don't know what thinking back, I spoke no English and I was like, I'm going to the States. I'm getting a full ride and no one's going to tell me otherwise. And my mom was like, please, someone tell her that she needs to wake up and be realistic here. Like, if it doesn't go that way, there's no backup plan. So anyways, that was like...
Set your sights high, right?
I don't know. I miss that girl sometimes, the girl that doesn't doubt anything, that vibe.
Fair.
I miss that little 16, 17, 18 years old.
Fair.
Yeah, you still got it in you, Kax.
Thank you. But there's the other vibe that also says, should you really do this? Or
the adult voice coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So Rich, sorry, we will get back to you since this is your episode, apparently. So after high school, you went to Niagara. So you're at Niagara. And then tell us, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but tell us what happened. The bumpy road, let's say, that the Niagara program took.
Yeah, so in my sophomore year, we were just getting ready for our first postseason workout. And as everybody can appreciate, that's probably one of the worst days in college where you're going to postseason testing and you know that they're going to evaluate your chin-ups, which you haven't done in a long time, and all of the bench press and squats and things like that. So we were all really nervous. So we got to our postseason workout. And before I got there, I had some random phone calls coming through, just random area codes. And I was like, oh, this is strange, but it's fine. I need to focus in on my numbers that I'm going to get for my 3 chin-ups later. So I got to the rink and we were warming up in the hallway. And as we were warming up in the hallway, our athletic director walked in. And when he walked in, he walked us into our dressing room. And when we walked into the dressing room, he let us know that our program was being terminated. So it was shocking to say the least. I went outside. Oh, there was a lot of tears in between. I'm not going to pretend to be this tough girl, but there was definitely a lot of tears. We all kind of went outside just to try and figure things out. What do we do next? Checked my voicemails, recognized that some of the coaches that were doing the next round of recruiting for transfers were starting to call, which was great for me. Not a great experience for some other players that were in a position that didn't know what was coming next. I actually went home for 2 weeks after that. My dad, like I said, was still coaching at the time. So I went back to junior Final Four and kind of used that as my recruiting visits again and spoke to a couple of coaches that were in the stands there. I felt like a free agent with a hat on, just sitting up there and trying to talk to some people or whoever was interested in whoever has spots. But yeah, so they terminated the program at Niagara. We never really got an answer as to why. I know that there are some people who are definitely pushing for the program back. A successful program that definitely had some national championship berths. So they were there a couple of times, not in my time, but before me. They had some banners up in the rink that were taken down the following year. There was a lot of history that was removed from that arena.
Why?
I think we were told at the time that they were going to be introducing a women's track team in order, again, Title IX, the way that it works is that you have to have the same amount of opportunities for the men's as the women's. And we did have a men's hockey team at Niagara as well. And they are still there, still going strong. And I'll give the Niagara men's hockey team credit. They've actually been super supportive of my professional career. They've thrown out a couple of tweets here and there, and we definitely appreciate them. It's nothing against them. But having that men's hockey team and that women's hockey team was definitely more equitable than anything that I can imagine that they can do. I've heard some rumblings, nothing guaranteed, but I've heard some rumblings of maybe a program potentially coming back. Niagara was such a great space for a women's hockey program. It's close to the border in Ontario, some of the top talent coming out of the OWHA here. I think that it's crazy that they don't have one, especially considering they have an arena on campus. We know that they have the locker room. We know that they have the facilities and things like that. So hopefully, again, maybe I'm just putting it out in the universe and just hoping that somebody will listen to this. But definitely hoping that they have something down the road for that program, because it was a fantastic program, and it's really sad that it had ended the way that it did.
Crazy.
100%.
And Go ahead, Kax. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and you never really, like, they never give you a full on, well, I mean, I'm sure there's reasons and everything, but like, it's better this way, probably. Kind of like, you need to agree with it and that's it.
Yeah, and it was really tough. They always kind of blame the finances. And I think women's hockey, like hockey in general, is an expensive sport. We know that. We appreciate that. But I think I'm positive, and it's funny how you remember things when you're looking back at it, and hindsight's 2020. But a couple weeks after our program folded, we received an email from the university that said that they just got this huge scholarship grant, this massive donation to the university in the millions of dollars. And I remember reading it with my teammates and being like, oh, but we don't have enough for women's hockey. It's fine, right? So yeah, it's really hard to know the full story. But again, I'm not the investigative type, and I know that there are people who are definitely pushing for better and pushing for more answers. Good. So know that there's some great people that are working behind the scenes to get more from them.
Yeah, we'll stick on the positive side and hope for the purple eagle to come back.
Yeah,
the purple eagles. Yes.
Yeah, they were sweet. I love that road trip.
So as you're back in Ontario then at the Final Four tournament, and how long after that, after those conversations, did you figure out where you would go to next?
I'd say it was about a few weeks worth of time of just trying to settle things down and figure out what was next. I had an amazing academic advisor at Niagara University who was like, you know what, we'll sit down, we'll look at your credits, we will get you where you need to be, and whatever you need to happen, we will have happen, which was awesome. Nice. So when I had gone home, met with some coaches, then planned a couple of visits, I went to Robert Morris University, which is eventually where I ended up. Again, knowing what I wanted to do definitely helped. So Pennsylvania's education system is also recognized in Ontario. So knowing that I could complete my education as well as come back and be able to be an Ontario certified teacher was a huge push towards going to Robert Morris University. And I was happy to have them welcome me with open arms. There were a couple of schools that were in the mix, but at the end of the day, like, I had prioritized my education and knew that if you're happy with your hockey, everything else seems to fall into place too. And they were a competitive team. They did great. They beat us, I think, actually that year in CHAs, which was heartbreaking. But at the same time, it came full circle, and it was a great fit for me.
That's awesome. Bobby Mo.
Bobby
loved
Mo.
it.
RMU serious.
I know. When was that, Richie? What year was that you did officially the switch from?
Yeah, so I was a junior. So I had 2 years at Niagara, and then it would have been 2012, 2013 that I made the switch over to Robert Morris.
Nice.
Okay, I have a question. So because your program folds, you don't have to redshirt when you pick another school, right? Now, this is all new to me, but I'm seeing all this stuff about the transfer portal right now in the NCAA. And not to throw them under the bus, but Ohio State just seems to be signing all these players, they're going to be so stacked next year. And maybe you have, or maybe you don't have the answer. Between the two of you, I'm sure we can figure it out. But can you explain to the listeners, how the transfer portal works? What happens? Do you redshirt? Do you not have to redshirt? What are the restrictions or limitations?
Kax, do you want to talk about in conference versus out of conference?
Yeah, I think that I was going to go with that. I think, and I could be wrong. I will read after this if I'm not. But I think that when it's in conference, there's you need to take a year. If not, I could be mistaken. But as soon as you transfer, so for instance, is it Bilka that went from BC to Ohio, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 different conferences. So Hockey East to WCHA. Yeah. So then she doesn't need to actually sit out a year and stuff. So there's still a little bit of regulations to kind of limit the movement, but that new portal is kind of also what's happening on the men's side a lot too.
So that's a new thing though, right?
The portal itself has been there, but I think it just now more, you see it more, if that makes sense. It's a new trend. Can I put it that way? I don't know how to place it, but
I don't know if COVID had anything to do with maybe some of the rules as well.
Yeah,
because
to make it easier.
Yeah, and there's some girls I know that have finished out their 4 years at a program. I don't know if they can hold them to the same interconference transfer ruling that they may have been able to before, but
yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Makes sense.
So I think also there was like a legitimate situation where the coach is recruiting, right, for 4 years, and he's recruiting for new recruits, and you've gained technically 2 years back, but they don't have the money or the feasibility to have you in their own program. So then that's why it was easier to have these transfers. But I don't know if it's like limited to solely that COVID year, because I saw a couple, like I saw UVM to Northeastern too for the senior year, or like grad extra year, called it the COVID year. So yeah, it's a little bit of it's getting
seems like a new thing. It's like you say, it's always been there, but
yeah, it was tough anyways. Let's do the paperwork and everything, but now that's like, probably online and easy.
You had to get a courier pigeon to send in your paperwork
and hope that, hope I made it back and I got an answer.
Oh my gosh.
But give those players credit, right? Like transferring is not easy. I think that it's always tough to go into a team that's already established. There's friend groups. There's, again, like you kind of get close to your class, and walking into some classes can be a very difficult situation but I do believe that like the transfer portal, the way that it's working now, it seems like a lot of girls are accepted with open arms the same way that I was. And I do think that they're getting some really cool educational experiences at some different schools that they probably wouldn't have had that chance to without COVID. So in a way, blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, so because we're talking about programs like unfortunately folding,
we're on a trend here too. I guess we're like, I'm not sure. Like is it the Richie trend?
Trying not to laugh here, but so you went to Robert Morris, which their program just got reinstated. Hey, this is a positive story.
Yeah, you brought it back.
Yeah, it was reinstated last season, I think, after a couple seasons of the program being canceled. Maybe talk us through, because you were only like a few years graduated when they canceled the program. So I'm sure this is still like a very like fresh wound for you, having the Niagara program closed, and then you graduate from RMU and now that program folds. Like what happened? Like, what do you talk us through kind of your emotions when you're seeing these programs they just can't survive without you?
Yeah,
so we said
that's probably what I'm going to have to go with from now on. I think I've started to call it like the kiss of death, which is what I said to you guys earlier before this. But it seems to be everything I touch right now. Like I started no, actually, even before that, my minor hockey team was the Etobicoke Canucks. They're no longer in existence. They're now, I think, the Toronto Capitals. Then the Dolphins are still around, so I'm going to take that one. That's a big win. But
go Fins.
The Mississauga Chiefs obviously rebranded to the Mississauga Hurricanes. Really excited for that organization, but still, again, not something that I got to play for. Moved over to Niagara, folded. Robert Morris, folded. Brampton, folded. Markham, the whole CWHL folded. Then, like, now I'm in the PWHPA, and honestly, like, excited about the next steps of the PWHPA, though. Like, if this one folds for a bigger and a better thing, then hey, I'm here for it. Let's take it. I'll take that kiss of death any day. But yeah, no, it's really difficult to see these programs kind of just fall to the wayside. Like the women's hockey program and the men's hockey program at Robert Morris University, both folded at the same time, both reinstated at the same time, which is super exciting. The Pittsburgh Hockey Foundation has worked extremely hard with Brianne McLaughlin, Logan Biddle, they're honestly such incredible voices for that program. Really excited to see them coming back, doing a great job with the transfer pool and doing an excellent job with some of the incoming freshmen as well. So excited to see them up and running. I know Brittany Howard and I were both actually at a PWHPA event when that program folded, and we had a couple of interviews, and I remember being like, I am not ready for this again. Like I got to stop answering questions about why these things keep folding around me. So, but again, a positive story and a positive outcome for that one. So good.
Amazing.
We'll keep it on that note. It's flipping now. It's for the best.
It's all on the pendulum. It's coming back to the positive sides. You touched on it there a little bit, but after RMU, you came to the CWHL. You played for the Brampton Thunder. That first year, like, sorry to exclude you, Kax. I'm not doing it intentionally.
I can't wait to hear all about this because
that
this is your
year,
insight.
Yeah, it was a really special group of players that we had in Brampton, and like a very blue collar mentality under Tyler Fines was our coach that year. It was his first time coaching in women's hockey. And like, he just really fostered this culture that like, we knew that we were not the best talented team and we were just going to work our asses off. So I want to hear some of your favorite stories from your first year in Brampton CWHL.
Yeah, it was such a special group. The line that I was playing on at that time was actually, we named ourselves the Bluesicles. And part of the reason was because we wore blue jerseys in practice, but also because we cycled like no other line I've ever played on. I don't think we ever took the puck to the net because that just wasn't our role on that team.
You were wheeling and dealing in that corner area.
Okay, we tired out those defense, right? So we would do that work and then we'd come off and let Jamie Lee Rattray go out and score a couple goals. So it was a good feeling. We did our job. But the Bluesicles and Fielding Montgomery and Becca King, two of by far the best teammates I've ever had the opportunity to play with. Such amazing people and such great presence in the dressing room as well. Super lucky to have played with them. And I don't know, honestly, there's so many good stories. I'm such like a loyal funda at this point that all of the years kind of blend together at one point. I do remember, like, the one thing that I will say about Tyler Fines in that year was that was the first time that I didn't see skating as a punishment. We were so used to like coming out of university where you'd have a 6 a.m. practice after a terrible weekend and you'd be skating for 30 minutes on the clock and whatever it may be. But we knew that we were a blue collar team. We knew that we had to work hard, and it was just like, no, we're skating because this is the only way we're going to compete. So,
that in the third we can take advantage of it and still have legs. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. And that's a special thing to be able to have your players buy into and believe in. And I don't know if you would have had a different culture of a team that you would have got that same result. But credit to him for helping us believe in ourselves as a work hard team. So my favorite story ever is definitely Brampton versus Calgary. I think you can ask girls who have gone to the Olympics that played on that team that the Brampton-Calgary game is by far the best memory that they've ever had.
Wild.
It was epic. And like Knoxy, like you can share kind of your experience as a goaltender in that game because I think that there was so much happening.
So this
give us the back, like get the people in the vibe in the situation.
So
here.
People who are my age, like you've seen the Mighty Ducks. This was like District 5 versus Team Iceland. Like Calgary was so talented. They had Team Canada. They had Team Canada. Like it was like I think the year before centralization or the year after, and so like just a lot of talent had moved to Calgary that was playing for the Inferno. So we go out on Saturday, and how we played Saturdays, I played Sundays was typically our rotation, like 1A, 1B kind of situation. Howie stands on her head. I think we lost 3-2 that first game.
Nope, won 3-2 in overtime. And the only reason I remember that is because I got 2 goals in that game and I'm not big a goal scorer. So I was like, well, you know what? Like, it's not going to get better from here. So I remember we won that game, took a point, got a couple points myself, was like, all right, we're ready.
Wow. That's right. Yeah. Because I think, now I'm remembering because I posted the picture with Howie after that weekend, like that we had the sweep. Anyway, so we win a huge game. I think Monty had a couple assists in that game as well, like Fielding Montgomery, again, part of the Bluesicles, not a goal scorer, not a point getter, was like, so this is like miracle,
she always
right?
Found it somehow though.
She was like, gritty.
She always got a couple with us, against us anyways.
So we take a big win and team's pumped and Finesy calls me into the office and he's just like, hey, like, I hate to do this to you, but like Howie played unreal today. I was like, yeah, she did. He's just like, she's going to go again tomorrow. I was like, okay, like, I support you. I want to win hockey games. Like, I'll happily sit in the stands, right? Mm-hmm. Or on the bench, I guess. But actually it wasn't in the stands because in that rink, there wasn't enough room for the goalie on the bench. So you physically had to sit in the stands. CW. Anyways, so that night, my roommate at the time, Lori, was throwing this big party for like their hockey team. So they're like, oh yeah, you guys want to come by, like have a few beers, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Like I'm not playing tomorrow. So I was like, kind of put feelers out into the crowd. Like, hey, like does anyone want to come over and like have a couple drinks, whatever. So Richie's like, yeah, I'll come by. So we end up like partying way too hard.
Well, in my mind, I wasn't going to top the performance I had the night before. So realistically, if I had to sit on the bench the next day, I was ready for it.
And I definitely wasn't playing. So I'm like, heck, who cares, right? So we end up like drinking till like an absurd hour of the morning. Like it was like 4 o'clock. We were shutting it down. And of course, we're playing against Calgary. So the game is at like 10 a.m. because you got to play the game. Then they got to get on a flight and get home before their Monday jobs, right? So literally, I think the game was 10:30 or 11. So like we wake up, I'm wildly hungover. We get like I got like a plain bagel from Timmy's, and we go to the game, and I'm just like sitting there, just like trying to eat it. Like, you know that feeling when you're in so much pain?
Oh yeah. And
I'm sure Rich is the same, but she's just faking it because she's like, oh no, I barely drank last night. Like, it's all good.
She's faking it. Doesn't want anyone to know she went out and then to judge. Yeah,
I'm good, coach. Put me in. Anyways, long story short, we end up like down 4 goals, I think it was 4 goals, because then we're down 3, and Findsy looks at me. He's like, "You're going in," and I was like, "No, I am not."
This is better than what you get.
Yes, it will only get worse if I go in. And then like we get scored on again. I think we're 4-1 at this point. He's like, "Knoxy, go." So I'm like, "Oh no." So I like go in the net, and I'm like, just like, I'm starting to get like the shakes here. And the referee comes up to me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so unwell. Like, can you just like give me a break if I cover the puck for extra time?" She's like, "Yeah, whatever. It's good." So first shot of the game, breakaway, goal.
Oh shit.
So now we're down 5-1, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I literally like started looking at the clock and would just count down in my head how much time was left in this game. Like, please make it end. I don't know how. I think at the end of the second we were like 5-2. So still like not bad, but definitely not in a game. Somehow after regulation, I think we finished 7-7.
It was like, a 4-point bluesicle night. We had 4 points on the game.
So you know what that is, Richie? That is like not like the guilty kind of like performance, but
guilty player is a good player.
Is like, I've had the best workouts or the best tests or the best whatever.
Oh yeah, you gotta
went out the night
it.
before. Yes, you gotta prove that you can show up the next day if you went out.
And Monty had like 2 shorthanded goals or something. Didn't she have a couple shorties in that game?
Yeah.
Again, the kid who never gets a point all of a sudden is our leading point getter against the best team. So yeah, we went into shootout, and then and the goalies. I forgot to mention this, but the goalies on both sides, like, it was like we changed. It was basically on the fly.
They changed more frequently than our forwards did.
It was like Delaney Bryan and, oh gosh, I can't remember who their other goalie was.
It might have been Ketty Desjardins at the time.
Yes, it was Desjardins. Yeah. Yes, good. Yeah, good for you for remembering.
I remember that.
So the two of them were like in and out. Me and Harvey were in and out, and went into a shootout, and somehow we won in a shootout. But yeah, that was one of those crazy games, like just written in the stars. It was a wild year.
I love those stories. I love the ones that it's just like first of all right, coaches, don't be mad. Yes, they went out, but then they showed up, and sorry you felt so shitty and could have probably puked in your mask, which would have been awful if I'm thinking about it. Like, at least players, we've got space.
Oh my gosh.
We got this thing here. Anyways, but were you able to see everything? Like, were you good? Were you feeling it at some point? Like when it got like really close to, like it's 5-5 maybe, or it's 6-4. Like,
me
were
or
you
Rich?
you mentally, Knoxy?
No, I was still mentally, please make this end.
Really? I thought at some point you'd get over it or something, Like,
no, I was in a bad way,
Richie's
man. I've
ready
never
for
been.
This. You're not.
I've never been that
for
hurt.
this. You're not trained for this stuff,
Richie's
I guess.
fresh out of college too. She's still got like the college mindset. I'm like an old lady who just drank way too many beers. But it was a cool culture. It was a really cool culture in Brampton, and it kind of carried over to Markham in a lot of ways, with like kind of a new face, I would say. So why don't you talk us through that 17-18 season, which, well, you and I know how it ended. We don't want to brag.
Oh, whatever.
I don't want to brag.
Right away to the 17-18. That's it, eh? There's nothing prior to that. Man,
that was our first year in Markham.
Yeah, Montreal was the best at everything, and then all of a sudden Markham came along and just reality checked them. That's all. But
here comes Richards and the chirps McGee. Let's go. Let's hear it.
It's funny actually. Our experience in Markham when we had first moved over there, a little bit of self-deprecation here in the sense where it's we were on a 9-game losing streak. We were the worst team arguably in the league at that point, and just didn't have a lot going for us. Couldn't figure it out. Didn't know what to do. And then honestly, I know this story has been told on the podcast before, so I won't spend too much time on it. But
no one really elaborated as much as you'll probably do, so please go.
Okay. I'll help you out here. I'm going to expose my current coach, but Laura McIntosh a little bit here, and say that she is definitely the reason that we won the Clarkson Cup that year. I don't think the girl gets enough credit between everything that happened that year. She is literally the pillar of strength that team needed, and also the most fun person in a locker room and the most fun person on the road. So Mac, who was kind of at the point where she was ready to retire, but we just kept being no, you're too good. Come back.
1 year.
You don't have to go to practice. You just have to play on our first line. That's all we want from you. And she was in it. She would come to games and she'd get just power play time at first and didn't play a regular shift, but was just still obviously the best player on the ice with the best vision when it came to a power play and setting everybody up. So she did that. She showed up for us. We got into Montreal on our 9-game losing streak, and there was Mac being if we're in Montreal, we're going to go out. And we were well, we don't even know what's happening yet, right? Let's play game 1 and see what happens. And I believe it went that we stole a point from Montreal. We went into overtime and lost in overtime, which we were used to losing at this point, but getting to overtime was a shock for us. So we get into that overtime. We get a point where we've already celebrated. At this point, it doesn't matter if we win or lose that game. So lose that game, go into the dressing room. We're all you know what? We're going out tonight. Poor Knoxy, who has to play the next day, was trying to be responsible adult goalie Knoxy and was I can't. Our coach told me not to. And I was okay, well, the party's going to start in our room, though. So we're going to bring everybody to our room. They're going to come in. We have a case of beer, and then we'll go out after the fact. And everyone comes into our room. Responsible Knoxy was, again, just in the room, in her pajamas, ready to go to bed. And Mac looked at all of us and was well, we're going out, even if she's not coming. So we go out, we go to the bar, and by the time we're just down the street, Knox is already calling Mac saying, "Where are you guys?" And she comes out to the bar and she's there and she's dancing with the rest of us. And I think there was a live band. I think maybe a Montreal player was there. I won't uncover her, but I think she showed up at one point too.
Ambrose would happily say it was her. She full on owns that night.
It's true. Yeah. You know what? I will say Ambrose is I'm the person who turned your season around, and it's no, girl. We credit Mac, but you were definitely a part of it. Thank you for losing that game to us. But no, it was such a great night. And I think that our friends, actually, Brody and Jess, who were fortunate enough to live around the corner from at this point, but they were sending Snapchats of Liz just dancing at the bar. And by the end of the night, every Snapchat they sent had a different score. So it would be 2-0 Montreal, 4-0 Montreal. And I think by the end of the night, it was something 43-0 Montreal. So we kind of had a feeling that it was not going to go our way. And it ended up going our way the next day. And that was what kind of started our winning streak into the Clarkson Cup. And again, great culture, amazing people in that dressing room, and some great stories along the way.
Absolutely. And that's a good one.
You touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but some of the things that Laura Mac had to overcome, obviously, and we've talked about it on the podcast, but it's worth noting again, Mac lost her mom suddenly, less than a week before the Clarkson Cup final. So just like Rich is saying, the way that the team was able to rally around her. And of course we had the Olympians. So we had Laura Fortino, Laura Stacey, and Jocelyn Larocque come back with the silver medal, which
not a bad little group there.
Yeah, a good little squad to add back to the roster. But you know what? Like, there was girls that had filled their role while they were gone, and like they still were bought in. And then the Olympians, like, they wanted to come back and play with us, and they respected the fact that like they were taking somebody else's position. It was just like a really cool team. Like, it's hard to kind of capture, but you know, like we always joke, like it's the stuff that like movies are made of. Like, just things seem to line up. And I mean, the turning point being out in Montreal was, you know, that would have been like the turning point in the movie where everyone's like, oh, this team's definitely going to win.
The team connected, and
even though we still lost the next day.
Yeah, and had the chance to shout out, obviously, my hockey dad through this, but something to be said about some special hockey moms as well. And Diane was definitely one of those. And we definitely miss her, and Mac is making her proud even to this day. So excited that she got that championship, as well as continuing to push the game forward through her role in the PWHPA.
I love that. I love that shout out. And I wanted to, so at the, like, in a parallel life, right? Like, you're playing hockey, we're practicing 2-3 times a week, games on weekends. You're also a full-time teacher at this time. So you finished at RMU, your education degree is good up here. So you jump into teaching. And you were also the head of development for the Etobicoke Dolphins, the lone organization that survived Kristen Richards. But
because she went back and helped them. That's it. That's it. I got it. Rich, if you're involved after or during or at the same time, it
can't fail.
Let them know, Niagara. Safe. I'm coming back.
No, but you in those couple of years, like, you were taking on so much. And I know that you don't like to brag, but your time when you were teaching at the Hill Academy and coaching with the Dolphins, you had some pretty cool athletes that you crossed paths with. So the first one I want to ask you about is Cole Perfetti.
Yeah, so Cole Perfetti, obviously playing in the NHL now, was one of my students at the Hill Academy, and an incredible athlete, but probably an even better student. One of the things, like, I had him in careers, of all things that I could teach, but I had him in careers, and I did a project one day, and I was new to the Hill Academy. It was my first year there, and I didn't really know the kids, didn't know how star-studded my classroom truly was. And when I had asked them to do this pathway project where they had to determine what career they wanted to go down, I had a couple of kids that gave me the answer, like, well, I'm going to play in the NHL. And I was like, no, you're not. Like, just the typical teacher who's like, there's no way, it's way too hard.
Keep dreaming.
I don't know who I am. Yeah. But one of the things I will say that I've taken on is the idea of prove me wrong is a lot better than being like, you can do it, and then having somebody not get there. So prove me wrong. That's fine. But Cole, a complete opposite, like, probably knew he was going to the NHL at that point, but still, like, put in the work to wanted to become an agent. So maybe we'll connect them with you one day, Kax, down the road. But honestly, just the amount of work and the amount of stuff that he put into it, just an incredible student, incredible athlete as well. So excited to see him be so successful down the way.
So that's one, right? One. What about another one that we kind of know, but what about Shane Wright?
Shane Wright. Another incredible
I think everyone
student.
knows him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a pretty popular player kind of in Montreal.
I think so, right? No, he is.
He is, again, another incredible student. One of the stories that sticks out to me about him was I taught drama, believe it or not, which is another scary thing to see.
You did it all. Career drama. I can't wait to hear. There's more coming, guys. Just wait.
Yeah. And in that drama class, I kind of decided I was going to switch gears from like the standard curriculum to help them with some sports media, knowing that a lot of these kids were going to go down the road and be in interviews and things like that. And I hosted an interview day with the kids, and Shane was at the front of the class, and he answered a question, and I'll never forget it, where he mentioned that his sister was a better athlete than he was. And I was like, this is a grade 9 student who is like, has all these accolades, who's talking like to already, I'm sure, NHL clubs, if you're even allowed to at that time, I don't even know. But he would just stood up there and he was like, hey, my sister's on an NCAA soccer scholarship, I believe at the time, and just was like, she's a better athlete than I am. And I learned from her every single day. And I was like, wow.
So all those naysayers that think Shane Wright is a little prick, you don't know him.
He's not. He's amazing. I'll stand by him.
Get to know the players. I think that's cool. And we got an insider here. This is fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, you also worked with a lot of, names that I think women's hockey fans will be familiar with. The one year you were running kind of like skill skates, had an interesting like kind of situation where the school has an arena. So you were running skills with, some names you might recognize like Jenner, Poulin, Stacy, Rattray. But tell us the story about when Claire Thompson came to the PWHPA.
Oh man, this is when I realized that I was close to the end. I think. Claire.
Richie, watch what you say here.
I know. You know what? I take it back. You guys are both older than I am. Shout out to the crowd. But Claire Thompson, actually, when she joined the PWHPA, we were at our first Toronto region skate, and I'm a non-national team player. Every year I go to a regional skate, I'm a little bit nervous. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, you get prepared for it. You do the things that you need to. And I got ready. I was skating around, and all of a sudden I have this player come up behind me and be like, "Hey, Rich." And I was like, "That's weird." Like, I was like, "Hi." She's like, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, yeah. She's like, "Yeah, Claire Thompson, you were my power skating coach." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." I was like, "Okay, yep, maybe I'm getting too old for this. You think?"
I'll take some Advil, please.
Okay, well, to that extent, though, didn't you start like kind of teaching power skating and stuff like that, like way younger, no?
Yeah, so I started, I actually worked with our power skating coach, Dawn Braid, who was with Arizona, worked in the NHL as well. I think she's still with them. But she had me come out with her teams in Etobicoke as well as Brampton and a couple of other regions when I was 17. So I took that over then did summer development all through my university. And then from when I graduated university, took it over as a full-time gig as well.
See, that's like, I'm not saying it's not getting or showing your age or whatever, but I think you've worked with athletes at a very young age. So already you were a really good skater. And I think, I don't know, it shows value to that. And you've been in, like, as you were also choosing university probably and everything, you were teaching people how to, run these power skating. I don't know. I just love it. You did it all.
Yeah.
You did it all from 16 to manage the whole thing, and then
to however old you are now. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But I do have a question actually, because this is like a little off script maybe, but I've had the conversation a couple times with various people, mostly young women who are starting out in coaching. A lot of it is in minor girls organizations, and it's unfortunate that this is their experience, but it's a really like difficult space for even ex-professional athletes, ex-NCAA athletes to break into. So I'm curious to know what your experience was like as a young coach, definitely in, women's hockey, and maybe how that experience has changed or stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. I can't tell you how many times like I was trying to get into an organization, or even with some of the organizations that I've worked with, where they had somebody already on that was somebody who played junior B boys hockey, and they just couldn't break the idea that like they could have a professional female come in and be able to do the same thing, or like, believe it or not, like maybe better. Like, we're not sure, but they have the experience that most of these girls are aspiring to be. And I think that like one of the things that I would tell every organization that's trying to get into the space of bringing in female coaches is making sure that you're making an effort to recognize the amount of work that these people have already put into the game. Understanding that modeling is definitely a thing that our kids look to, our students look to, where you can actually be somebody that they can aspire to be. Our girls in minor girls hockey organizations, they're not aspiring to play junior B. They're not aspiring to play even in the East Coast right now, like the ECHL and the AHL and all these things. Like, they are aspiring to be NCAA or CIS or U Sport athletes. Like, they are aspiring to be these things that our girls can give you that experience. So it's really important to bring in voices that they can turn to when they have those hard-hitting questions of, how do I pick my university? What did you do? The same questions that you're asking us on this podcast, but having like a face that they can trust and somebody that they know has been through those experiences is so important to them. But until you recognize a professional, until they're willing to put the work in to recognize female athletes as professional athletes, then we're still a long way away from that. Like there's not that understanding there. There's not that push to really respect the females that are trying to get back into the game.
It kind of comes in we'll give you a shot, but then the whole thing is like you're being evaluated the whole time almost, or like you're not entering this position with sometimes there's full support and it's like completely like, yes, you deserve this and you should be there. It's let's see what you do.
Well, and like, not to be too blunt. Sorry if I'm cutting you off, Kax, but like some people look at ex-NHL players or East Coast League, wherever it may be, and like they're great athletes. So I'm not taking away from them, but the perception is like, wow, this guy walks on water, and I don't feel that same respect from a lot of people, not just men, women as well, in women's hockey, where it's like, oh my gosh, like Rich, like you played NCAA and you played the PWHPA alongside Marie-Philippe Poulin and Karell Lamard. Like that's like, you must, like, you're legit, you know what I mean? Like and again, I don't know how that changes or breaks, probably just slowly and with recognition of the sport, but it is hard to like feel like you have to earn notoriety from like a hockey parent who like their extent of the knowledge is, I don't even know.
But to that exact point, their extent of the knowledge is little, because the only thing they see on TV is every 4 years, and it's a team of 25.
Right. And
the amount of time that I was just talking about the amount of time that I get the question, you play hockey, are you going to make the Olympics? And I'm just like, there's a phase of me that's like, fuck's sakes, again. And then there's another phase that's like, they don't know. Yeah. And they can't know technically unless they do research, unless they start looking things up, unless they have Instagram. And moms and dads love Facebooks and all that jazz, and we've got on it. But let's be honest, we're not there enough. And any NHL that played two games in the NHL has automatically a credibility that we can't even get to. But we are more educated. We've played hockey for longer. We've probably coached years and years, and this person comes in and has that, like you said, like automatic credibility comes in. We're going to trust this guy. I cannot wait. And I think this is where we're going and how it's changing. But even within our group, for us players to realize that like being pro is good enough. And being pro is like, I had this whole thing where I was like, oh, it's good, but I'm not on the Olympic team, or oh, it's good, but I'm not on the national team. And you're looking back at your career. And I said that before, I think in a pod, but looking back, and it's difficult to say I had a very successful career in women's hockey, because when I say that, people are like, oh, but you didn't make the Olympics. Right. Like in my head, it's like, so I failed in my own head in terms of like achieving like the top of like what is recognized and what is like a good hockey or a good women's hockey player. Right. But it's not true. There's like the pro out there are sick good. And why does Crosby get the same recognition as another guy on the fourth line and like Anderson here? Anderson would not make Team Canada.
Right. Great point.
Yeah.
We can idolize.
Wait to have the 6 teams or the 8 or the 10 down the road that have 25 players, and we idolize all of them.
Yeah.
Versus 5 of them. That's it.
This is like, no, it's actually a perfect segue into back in 2019, Rich, you wrote a piece, an opinion piece entitled "Why a Non-National Team Member Chose to Stay with the PWHPA." The link is in Kristen's Twitter, so at K_Rich19. I strongly encourage anyone who's trying to understand like a player's perspective to read this, but maybe talk us through some of the key points or like where you were at in your career. It's very much lining up with what we're talking about right now. And like, you're not a national team player. You're not, like a household name per se, but why, without being too self-deprecating, talk us through, kind of being a non-national team member, striving for this future that the PWHPA has envisioned.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time that piece was more of a way for me to work through my emotions. I was trying to figure out what the next best step was for me, because at the end of the day, like, and I do mention this in the article, at the time I was offered an NWHL contract, and I was kind of deciding of which way I wanted to go. Did I want to go to the NWHL? Did I want to stay with the PWHPA and what it was going to be? And like I mentioned, I started to go through all of the different names that were coming out of university, and where would I fit in? Am I going to even make a team in the PA? Like, it's going to be a really difficult, like, star-studded roster. And like, that's where I think this whole narrative of like, it's us against them is like, it's so false. Like, it's so frustrating for us to hear as players. Like, some of my best friends play in the PHF, and I'm proud of them, and they've made the decision that is right for them, and that's great. But the PWHPA was something that I strongly believed in, and I think that I was ready to be in a place in my career where my biggest priority was pushing the game forward, pushing for more resources, and doing the things that the PWHPA was fighting for. So that sustainable league was something that I've always dreamed of, and something that I wanted to push for my future athletes. And like, I recognize within the piece that this is actually a really difficult thing for some of our big names, like a Marie-Philippe Poulin and a Hillary Knight and a Kendall Coyne, to be able to do. Is if you do create a sustainable professional league, the pool of players that are going to be competing for those national team spots are not going to be the same pool that you're currently seeing. You're going to get girls that have outbreak professional seasons that should get a nod to go to the national team. And I think that having them train at that level, like, you're going to see some names that maybe you didn't expect to see before. And the more work that people are putting into it, and the more resources that are being thrown at them, like, you guys are proving it right now with the idea of our players who are our past players who are going overseas and helping develop these other places. It's like, you throw resources at these girls, they're going to get better, and it's going to make it more competitive for our girls that have, let's say, a mainstay on some of the national teams that we think wouldn't change. So I think that was a big thing within the article. And I talked about the idea that women, I love WoHo Twitter. Like, I love Twitter. But sometimes, like, you get into the rabbit hole, and it's awful. And I don't think people realize how small and connected our world really is. Like, we're not lying to you when we say that, like, we support each other. Like, we're not lying to you when we say that, like, we want the best for women's hockey. We're not stuck up. Like, we're not trying to be people who are trying to push for something that shouldn't be there. Like, we all have the same goals. And I think that that's something that's kind of been lost in translation. And I talk about the fact that women's hockey Twitter, like, would say, like, only the Olympians get these cool opportunities. And as a non-national team player who this year got to meet Billie Jean King, raise the cup, like, do all of these amazing things, and really because of my Olympic teammates, and like, because they were the ones who were like pushing for that for me, I think that that's a really important piece too, because I think that being a national team player, sometimes they get this like idea or connotation towards them where they're pushing for more because they know that they're going to be the ones who benefit from it. Well, at the end of the day, they won't benefit from it as much as some of these other players will that are coming up. So I just want to kind of like change that narrative and push people towards understanding that women's hockey is our focus, like, and we want it to be the best that it can be, the same way that everybody else does.
Yeah. I'd like to add on that. Sorry. It's like it's almost like the player gets it, and the players are there, and we are already there. It's just a matter of like, everyone else come on, tag along with what we're saying a little bit more, like, stop sharing this one narrative that was potentially said like 4 years ago by a man that said that we need one league and I will invest. Sorry. Like, get with it a little bit here, and trust that what we're doing is not to like destroy one or another. It's, I said that the league got better because we're pushing for things too, and because they're hearing what we're pushing for, and because things are moving. Women's hockey is meant to be supported, and we need, like, we within support each other. Now we just need the rest of the people to like stick with what we're going to do for the league and for the women's game in general. Like, I'm just so sick of it all. Like,
yeah, it's not nearly as high school as it's sometimes made out to be in the media. And I will say, like, as a PWHPA member who's been around since day one, like, do I have issues with the other league, how they operate? Certainly. But I'm also on a board of directors for a players association. That's like definitively what a players association is you are there to protect the rights of the players, to make the players' lives better. And the league is there to make money. Like, and I think that we see a lot of times the narratives that we see about the PWHPA players or the PHF players and like this struggle, there's this divide, the rift in women's hockey. Like, it's not about the players. It's never been about the players. The players want the same thing. They want, a sustainable league with a livable wage where they're protected. Like, we want the same things. We're just going at it a little differently. And that's okay. To Kristen's point, like, we support our peers in the PHF who chose the decision that was right for them. And they support us for choosing what's right for us. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's so overdone and honestly, it's very divisive. Secretly,
and I'm going to state this here, but we support their decision and everything, and they support ours.
Yeah.
Of staying in the PWHPA too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, no, we get it. We get what you're doing. Yep. It's just that I needed to do this on my side. Like, we support the vision. Like, the number of times that I've had these conversations and that was said to me, and I'm just like, I love you for that, but I'd love for you to be here too. Like, you know what I mean? But yet, like, I get that. Like, but I want people to understand that there's, like, what you said to your point, Richard, like, Rich, whatever I call you right now at this point. But I want people to understand that we do love what everyone is doing. And I don't think they're like, oh no, everyone should not go in the PA either. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't heard that from any of those players. Yeah.
Okay. So we're already over an hour.
I know.
we kind of knew it was going to happen. So we'll try to round up the last few questions as quickly as we can. On a positive note, you were Team Sonnet faithful, because Sonnet in previous years was the GTA team. And this year, of course, with the mixed rosters, you got mixed in the shuffle. You landed on Team Harvey's, which is traditionally, I think, what most people would consider like the Montreal region. So want to hear your experience on the Burger Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, the Burger Bunch was an extremely special group. And at first, like you said, like, Toronto was Sonnet. I have work colleagues that still cheer for Sonnet because they're like, I'm cheering for Toronto this weekend. And it's like, oh, like, no, that's not how it works.
We changed a little bit this year. So
yeah, and it's confusing. It's hard to keep up with, but at least just cheer for me. But no, the Burger Bunch was very much a Montreal team. And I think our first showcase was in Montreal, and I remember being like, well, this is going to be strange. Like, I'm going to go to Montreal and maybe the refs will like me. Like, it's weird.
Here's a zinger. Referees in the audience here.
Yeah, no.
We do not get an advantage. We don't.
Bullshit.
I mean, it's funny because I'm with you, Kax, now. I'm like, we don't get an advantage. They still gave me penalties. Meanwhile, like, I came home from my first weekend in Montreal and Mac was like, you're already a Montreal kid. And I was like, oh gosh, here we go. But no, like, I hate that I love them. Like, honestly, I do.
Oh.
Like, it was such an awesome team vibe. Like, we first got there, and honestly, Montreal didn't really go as we planned. Like, we didn't have a great, successful first weekend. We're still just trying to get to know each other. But it really took off from there. Like,
Truro was like Truro was the big weekend for us for sure.
It was a big
like turnaround. Everyone kind of like was like, you know, when you play shy. Like, the description of playing shy, like, that was Montreal to me. Like, people were just like, no, you have it. No, you take it. No, you. It's like, I can take the puck and go score, poo. Like, don't be, you know, but it was fun. It was a very, like you said, I will say you're right. There was a lot of Montreal, players, like players that train here and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we had like good amount of like American players that I will say I've absolutely loved kind of getting to know and discover in a way this year too, which made it
One of my first experiences in Montreal was Claire DeGeorge, who was new to the PWHPA, and she was sitting beside me in the dressing room, and she just looked at me at one point and she's like, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you guys have done to get to the PWHPA where it is today. And I was like,
are we tearing up?
Oh my gosh, I love this team.
Wow. And that's it. People get it that way too. And that speaks volume. But yeah, Truro was a kick. And then which one was your favorite kind of showcase or vibey,
Oh, well, every showcase that you were at, obviously, Kax.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I didn't go to the last three due to an injury, but yes, no. The team was so cool. You're right.
Yeah, it was cool. It's hard to pick a favorite. I think that the OHL showcase, the Peterborough, that experience was obviously very special to me, having my school come down and actually be able to support that game
absolutely.
As well. But outside of that, just in general, I think every showcase that we got to know each other a little bit more, we just started to get more and more comfortable. So to really wrap it up in California and to finish on top was a really cool experience and definitely something I won't forget.
Yeah. And before you go, Knoxy, I want to also give a shout out to our staff. We stick with the same staff the whole time and same therapist and everything. But Alex, I feel he came our assistant coach. Corey was our head coach, but Alex was new to the women's game a little bit, came in more of a power skating type of coach, but wanting to discover. And he brought his personality to our team and his very French personality. And it was awesome. And the girls loved it. It was just you don't know what he's about to say, but you're going to go with it and it's going to be fun. And I know he had a really good time with it. And I think it's experience like that makes them also kind of, want to join the movement and make sure that we have these opportunities and that we bridge the gap between the national players and the pro players in terms of talents and stuff. So I don't know. It was just cool.
I think you're so right in giving a shout out to our staff. Corey Chevery, I learned more this year in terms of systems, face-offs, things like that than I have in many years. And I was a 100%. Player who is coaching as well. You think you kind of have it figured out, but to have somebody come into the game and show it to you in a different lens and be able to break down video the way she did was incredible. Yeah. Alex, I'll give him the shout out. He had the best pregame. I think it was kind of an in-game speach. He loves to say boom, which I'm a huge, I might just start to throw that into mine. Yeah.
Stick on puck. Boom.
Yeah. And he actually came in between periods, Kax. I know you didn't get to experience this one, but in California, he's like, you know what, guys, I know that all of you have won lots in women's hockey, but I haven't yet. And I was like, yeah, you know what? He hasn't. It's right. And he's like, I want to win this. And I was like, okay, wait, we're
goosebumps.
Yeah.
See, we had this is fun. It just was such an environment that everyone came to be themselves. Yeah. That's kind of how I think the whole group's we're speaking about Harvey's here and everything. And I've heard this from all the teams, I think too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard anything, but
for sure. You asked the girls in California while we were sitting out in our resort, which was awesome. And every single girl there was like, if we could do it again, I would pick the same teams. And I think that that's so special, to bring in a bunch of girls from different regions that were just playing together, thrown together on weekends. But for everybody to buy into the fact that it didn't matter how successful their season was. We all chirp Sonnet, and I love it I love them for it. But even Sonnet, you've got some players that just fell in love with the game again. And you have players on Harvey's that were able to have that experience that are away from the national team, where they get to see some carefree hockey and they get to see some what it means to be a team player again. And I think that was a really special experience for everybody.
So many good points. And I think women's hockey is ready for this idea that you don't have to just play where you live. This is part of the comfort that we've had in the last, call it a decade or so after college, is that you get used to playing with the same players. And it's amazing. It's, to our earlier stories, it's a great experience, but women's hockey is ready for mixed rosters where you get to experience new athletes and learn about them, learn their stories. You were talking about shouting out the staff. I did want to give Sean Giles a big shout out. I know he was a huge part of Team Harvey's. I make an effort to try to give a shout out to our physiotherapists and our equipment managers on these trips, because they're very underpaid. I don't think they're undervalued if you were to actually talk to players, but sometimes it's a thankless job. And I know that Sean did a ton of work for you guys. Now, you mentioned the Alex's in-game speech, but we know who is responsible for the pre-game speech. So
they were okay.
How did this happen?
Freaking best too. And I want to know too, how did that happen? And how much preparation?
Oh man,
did you have? Go, yes.
Yeah, like when you get the nod from Marie-Philippe Poulin, you will go and do anything that she asks you to, I think. So, personally, that's how I feel. And so in the first weekend, when she pointed at me and said, you got the pregame speech, I was like, are you sure? Why? What's happening now? So yeah, and from there, it kind of became a routine that I was going to get to say something at pregame, and I took pride in it. I was really excited about it. Sometimes I was caught off guard because sometimes we have some younger athletes join us in warm-ups and join us on the blue line, and not that I'm vulgar whatsoever, but the odd time that I'd had something ready to go, and then there would be a 4-year-old in our crease, I'd be like, okay, we're going to switch that up a little bit. But no, definitely I'll give you guys a taste of it. In that last one, I basically said, we all know it's a burger without a bun, or it's not a burger without a bun. So let's get this bread. And that was basically it. And we ran with it. So
I love it.
Yeah, I love that.
You had so many in our text group. I'm going to send some too anyways, but they were so good. The prep to the last showcase, I think you had a full-on. No, it was a prep to a game that you weren't there.
Yeah,
and
Tampa.
You had all about players rhyming into it. Oh, that one was so good, Knoxy. I don't know if she showed you or if you whatever, but it was it was amazing.
Just got the puns on point. That's awesome.
She got us ready for the games, 100%.
And of course, you said that kind of Pooh was the one to give you the nod at the beginning of the season. She gave you a little nod at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce us to your friend there?
Yeah, her and Lee Steckline were definitely the reason for this. This lives with me now, so I'm just going to keep this here.
This is so good.
But yeah, no, that was an extremely special moment for me. And I think I have to give a nod to all of the extreme leadership that we had in that room, between girls that are playing national team roles, girls that were non-national team players that were still big leaders in their dressing rooms, both in college, in the end, and also within the CWHL. You don't go to a team in the PWHPA and not have somebody who has worn a letter at some point in their career. And I think that they're leaders every single day in everything that they do. So to be the one who got the nod to go and grab that trophy was super special. And honestly, I'm probably the highlight of my career.
Oh,
it was really cool to watch.
I love that they did that too. I really I'm glad you grabbed it, and then this is so cool. I just wish I was there to live it with you guys on the last little bit, because again, like we said, if we had 2 other players here, they would probably be talking the same way and about their teams and everything. I've heard all about it and on it. Now they have the most fun. Now that's the quote for their stuff, which used to be the Furies or the Thunder, whatever. So I appreciate everything that was done this year, and I think that we're going in a very good, direction in terms of the players and the ones that are there and why they're there, and they want to keep pushing just like we're doing it. And I think this year was the true feeling, or the closest thing we've had since the CW to a season,
Yeah, I will say there is a rumor that I would also like to myth bust right now, that this championship didn't mean something to the players because we weren't playing in our regions and things like that. And I just want to put out a little myth buster for everybody that's listening and just let you guys know that this championship definitely did mean something. And for a lot of us, like I said, for myself, a highlight of my career. And yes, we partied. Please don't tell us that we don't know how to party.
You should see the celebration pictures and videos we've got in these chats that I hear. I can tell you it meant a lot to the players.
Well, and, it was interesting talking to Jaina after the Southern California weekend, because yeah, like, were the crowds what we wanted? No, we certainly wanted more, but she's flat out said to me, if we wanted big crowds, we wouldn't have gone to Southern California. Like, we know that our reach is only so far in that market. Like, yeah, we could have easily come back to Ontario. We had amazing turnout for the OHL showcase weekend. A lot of the tour stops, we had great fan days, but she's like, we wanted to give the players a gift of a vacation. And that's what they did. So yeah, you can best believe that the resort was bumping on Sunday night, and security came to tell us to shut it down at some point. But congratulations, funny. Honestly, what a great season that you had with Harvey's, and again, just a testament to the kind of leader that you are. That, you know, Lee Steckline, Marie-Philippe Plan, Jesse Eldridge, like, all those girls just are so respectful of you as the locker room presence that you are. And it was cool. We'll link the quick video here. We'll try to link it. You receiving the cup from Jana Hefford, Billie Jean King, and Alana Kloss, which I'm sure will be a memory for you for a long time. And yeah, we've gone way over our hour, but it was worth every second. We knew it was going to be a good conversation with you. Wanted to shout out too, before we go, your De La Salle girls hockey team, another undefeated season.
Wow.
Do you guys have a mascot? What's your team mascot name?
Sal the Squirrel.
Sal the Squirrel. I like it.
The Squirrel Girls are champions again.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Well, we wish you all the best, Rich, and thanks for joining us finally on the Knoxy and Kax show. Kax has been bugging me for quite some time, so we're glad we could get you on. Of course, to our listeners, tune in to the Women's Worlds as they continue here in Brampton, Ontario. You can follow at Women's Worlds on Twitter for all your updates. And we're going to be covering some more of those games next week, Kax. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week on the Knoxy and Kax show. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rich.
The Knoxy and Kax show on SDPN, produced in partnership with the PWHPA and presented by Sports Interaction.
Want to bet?
Follow Knoxy and Kax on Twitter at 27Knoxy and at Karell Emard. The views expressed are those of the individuals and are not necessarily those of the PWHPA. Check out sdpn.ca for more Knoxy and Kax and the rest of the SDPN crew.
She scores!